Digital 410 Productions proudly presents the What's in Your Head podcast.
Digitized live from
your company name here.
Studios in Cape Coral, Florida. It's the What's in Your Head podcast.
What's up? What's
up?
Are
we going to finally get to see the picture?
Yep. What's up? What's up? What's up? OG5. Last week's episode and this week's episode is brought to you by the fine people at Quantum Fiber, presenting you with less than stellar internet, and they'll raise the prices to boot. So if you want internet that drops out when you're trying to do a podcast, give Quantum Fiber a call today. On the bright side, they won't charge you for data and charge you an extra $200 a month like Comcast did because, well, yeah. So what's up, fellas? Last week we were together and I was getting ready to tell this story after all the other things we talked about. And, well, the internet cut out. So let's go back a few weeks, and as you guys know, I have been posting photos on my Instagram, Facebook, about the fine products from the people over at Everyday Carry, 1791 Everyday Carry. They make tools like multi-tool carrying holsters, things for your pockets. They make fine quality leather goods to help you free up your pockets from all the crap you carry every day, whether it's a knife, a magazine, a multi-tool, a flashlight, what have you. They got equipment for you. And so I was trying to brainstorm an idea. Okay, how can I... the joke for the photo was, the importance of matching your accessories with your clothing. Because anybody knows when you dress up nice, your belt's supposed to match your boots supposed to match your hat, etc. So I had on my brown Peaky Blinders hat. I had on my nice World War II service boots, so very nice auburn red. I had on a nice belt, and then I had on the Quick Snap multi-tool carrying holster from that vendor. And so I was trying to figure out, well, if I wanted to take a picture, how am I going to get the product, which is on my hip and my belt, close enough to my shoes and my hat so you can see they all match without taking all that crap off and just, shoving it on a table? Because believe it or not, when you see marketing campaign, someone's got to think up this crap and you got to figure out how to execute it, right? And so I'm like, well, you can do the crouching down, like I'm changing my brakes and something like that, or maybe in the garage. Like, well, how would that look? So I figured as a brainstorming session, I would just set up my camera real quick, crouch down in like the position as if I was changing my brake or what have you, and try to get the product on a shot. And I took this photo and I'm looking like, that's a pretty good photo. But I was like, I can't post that. If I posted this photo, it would instantly turn into a meme. And that meme would be when you're trying to shoot a product photo and you end up inadvertently creating the cover photo from your Great Depression era rap album. Because that's exactly what it looks like. And I said, why would I put that out on the internet for people to make fun of me? Because that's the first thing someone's going to say. It's like, yeah, you look like you're making a rap album cover for a 1930s rap album. So I thought, who better to make a meme than myself? So if there's going to be a meme out there on the internet that people are going to be happily making fun of. So I wanted to share you guys before I post this up. Let's see, share. You guys ready for this? Looking at the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Straight out of Hooverville, established 1933. Behold.
Oh, snap.
Don't I look like I'm like that?
Straight out of Hooverville.
Don't that look like that stance is straight up a Great Depression era rap post? But I did my objective, right?
That or you're taking an Irish shit.
That too. That was my other thing. Looks like I'm dropping a deuce. But if you look at my hand, for some reason, my middle finger's curled back. Looks like I'm throwing up some weird gang sign. I successfully matched. I did get my boot, the product, and my hat all in one frame. I just so happened to be wearing my blue chambray shirt, which is basically the same material that Navy shirts are made out in World War II, except for they were a lighter color. So for all intents and purposes, I had the correct outfit on for the 30s. And so, yeah, I went ahead and just created the straight out of Hooverville, East, instead of Bone Thugs and Harmony, East 1999, I put East 1933. Nice. So there it is in all its glory. That is the cover for my upcoming Great Depression themed rap album called Straight Out of Hooverville.
I think if you would have reversed your pose and put your left shoulder down,
mm-hmm. It wouldn't look like I was taking a shit on that guy's shack.
Yeah, I think you were doing it right, but you're backwards. That's all.
Yeah, I'd have to reverse the image. And believe it or not,
Well-
that is a somebody may have colored it, but that background photo is because I was going to, my initial idea was to take my stance and then have get a picture of the Great Depression where he's like standing in a soup line, so it looks like I'm standing down in front of my posse, but they're all in black and white and super small. So then I had to Google, and then if I made my photo black and white, you wouldn't be able to see the whole matching ensemble of my accessory with my belt and my hat and my boot. And so I went with that. That's actually a colored photo unless somebody colorized it. But either way, that is a Hooverville. So
Outstanding.
Nice. Rather than throwing gang signs, you look like you lost your finger in a pre-OSHA industrial accident.
Exactly. I'm working. I'm literally blood, sweat, and tears trying to take care of my family during the Great Depression. I lopped off a digit. Of course, there was no workers' comp or insurance at the time. Fun fact. Did you know insurance pays out more if you lose a thumb than you do a finger?
Really?
Yeah, that was the joke when we worked at Horton, because before I worked there was somebody who lost a finger on the table saw, and there was somebody else who worked there who was missing a quarter of his finger, but I don't think he did it at that particular... No, he did. He actually, I worked with a guy named Dog. They called him Dog because his front teeth were fucked. I mean, he had summer teeth to the highest order. Some were brown, some were yellow, some were missing, some had holes. So he had the summer teeth, missing half of his index finger because he lopped it off on the table saw. But that was the joke, is if you were going to lose a digit and you wanted to retire, it better be your thumb. And it makes sense. Have either one of you ever severely damaged your thumb to a point where you couldn't use it for a week or two? Popped it out of the socket, you smashed a brick on it or something?
I'm
sure Morgan smashed his between some cylinders.
Yeah, playing the drums, I've cracked it a few times with a stick where it was black and blue and not been able to use it for a few days. But have you ever tried doing something without your...
That's what I'm getting to.
You can try to do it. Doesn't mean you're going to do shit. But you can just tape your thumb down to your hand and see if you can do everything that you normally do in a regular day.
And the answer is no. That's what separates us from fucking monkeys, is we have opposable thumbs, and that's what I was kind of getting to. If it's your primary hand, you can't zip up a zipper, you can't button a pair of button fly pants, let alone a belt.
Now, unless because you can get really good at doing things if you figure out how to twist your fingers up and get a little bit better grip and stuff like that.
Yeah, but minor injuries like that is not going to last long enough where you're going to force yourself to evolve to learn how to do those things. Now, obviously, if you lop a thumb off, then over time, yes, but that's why they pay out more. If you lose a thumb, greatly reduces your ability to perform daily functions than if you were to lose your middle finger or your ring finger.
I mean, my wife would still expect me to carry grocery bags up the stairs, but I digress.
No, I don't digress. I want to talk about this. You know what the worst part about grocery shopping is? The worst part, because I go every fucking day.
Taking it home and putting it away?
Yes, but why does that suck? Let's boil this down to the minutia.
I'd give you my reason why I think it sucks personally.
Sure.
Because I gotta fucking go up 2 flights of stairs, and that sucks.
Okay.
I got a bad knee.
What is it about putting groceries away that drives us nuts?
Aside from that, I'm not sure. Morgan, do you have an idea?
I don't know, because my wife always puts the stuff away because she doesn't like how I do it. So,
well, that is a quality skill to learn. If you learn not to do things correctly, either A, they won't ask you to do it, or B, they just say, fuck you, you wash your own clothes, I'll wash mine. But
that's what my wife did.
For me personally, the reason I hate putting away groceries is I hate doing something more than once. And when you're grocery shopping, you touch that single item a minimum of 4 fucking times. You take it off the shelf, you put it in the cart, you take it out of the cart, you put it on a conveyor belt, then they put it in your bag, then you take it out of the fucking bag and put it in your truck. Then you drive all the way home, you take it out of your truck, then you gotta carry it in, put it on the counter, and then I hate touching this fucking thing 17 times.
Add more to that, because you ain't putting it on no fucking conveyor belt anymore, and nobody else is putting it in a bag for you anymore, unless you're specifically talking about Publix alone. It's all fucking self-checkout now, son.
I'm in the ghetto. I'm in Northeast Cape Coral where we don't have self-checkout or Publix yet, which, by the way, somebody had the audacity, the unmitigated
gall
to comment on my post about the everyday carry holster today, claiming, let's just read, he is a fan, so I don't want to be too harsh, but there's an important lesson to be learned about assuming something about someone without knowing them. So I posted this, hey, what's your everyday carry? It's called building in the product, which, by the way, the fine people at Everyday, at 1791 Everyday Carry and 1791 Gun Leather, which they are now a vendor of ours on our website. If you go to what'sinyourhead.com, click on those two links and buy any of their products, we get our beaks wet. But the fine people at 1791, I just talked to them today. They're going to send us a box of their products that we're going to give away to the Patreon members. So if you haven't signed up for Patreon yet, go to what'sinyourhead.com or d-410.com. Click on the Patreon link. Sign up. It's $1 a month. When we do the giveaway, we're not going to do this thing where, you have to be a member for 4 months. No, as long as you're an actively paid subscriber, you're registered to win. And we do this a lot. Up until now, it's been a lot of primarily World War II stuff because the vendors through What's the Scuttlebutt have been donating stuff. But I got this coming down the pipe. I got
which is that's great that's gaining a lot of traction. That's awesome.
We got autographed books coming down the pipe that we're going to be giving away. We're actually getting another from another vendor through What's the Scuttlebutt. Someone's donating we did the lithograph of the Peleliu landings of Marine Corps, where we're getting a lithograph for aviation fans. So if you're into World War II aviation, we're going to be giving away a lithograph here soon. So head over to what'sinyourhead.com or d-410.com. Click on the Patreon link. It's $1 a month. So I post this and I get a comment. I'm like, ooh, somebody got a comment. So Tara posted a comment, Chris. And then Ronald, nice guy Ronald, posted, I live in an area where the likelihood of me getting stabbed or shot is far greater than yours. That said, it has never once crossed my mind to carry multiple knives and guns around because I'm not terrified of everything in the big bad world. That's insane, and I feel sorry for you. So first I replied, most dudes carry knives as tools. The knife is not to be used as a form of defense. That's what the Glock is for. Luckily, I've gotten more use out of the knife. I can't tell you how many Waffle House takeout steaks I've cut up with this bad boy. But then I replied, which is true. I carry a folding Glock. I actually have a Glock folder. But then I replied, also, people get shot and stabbed in every city. Years ago, when I worked at the radio station, there was a shooting in Northeast Cape Coral. Wink News had a photo on the homepage of their website with the house that had police tape blocking off the street. In the foreground of that photo, you could see the police tape wrapped around a mailbox. That was my mailbox. We didn't talk about it on the show because we didn't want people to know where I lived. Despite my best effort, my daughter gave an interview. I was up at 2 a.m. talking to the cops because I heard it go down. And then I said a couple of years later, in another house I lived in, I watched a woman, I watched them carry out the woman whose baby's daddy stabbed her 17 times in her driveway on Father's Day. So it doesn't matter where you live, shit happens all the time. So
and that shit ends up closer to home than you think, because I grew up with a guy. His mother was beaten to death in 1999, and he found her when he was like 6 years old. And to my knowledge, they never found the guy. So, and that was in Naples.
Long-time listeners of this podcast, people who've been around since day one, they remember when Gordon was on here. Gordon's best friend, Ed, he always came over to my house. He played my dad's guitar. My dad was amazed by his guitar skills. When I moved down here, when I worked at Stan Haney, he lived in Jacksonville. He worked for some theater company doing set production, not only for plays, but also when there was big conventions coming to town. He worked for the convention hall or whatever, and he would help do the building of the displays for these conventions or the plays, setting up stages and all that. Anyhow, he moved back to Columbus, Ohio. Dude was super liberal, super bleeding heart, was down for everybody's cause, which is great. I'm not ridiculing him for that. I'm just putting that out so you can understand how he got to where he ended up. He would befriend anybody, he had super empathetic. I don't know about his childhood. Maybe, he had a rough go at it, but super empathetic. As far as he was concerned, no one was a threat. No one was a danger. Minding our own business. Gordon gets a Facebook message. Ed was found dead with his throat sliced in a 5-gallon barrel because when he moved back to Columbus, he befriended a homeless schizophrenic kid in his neighborhood. Brought him in, hung out with him, tried to help him in all perfect things. But apparently at some point, him and the schizophrenic got in a fight. Dude slit his throat, put him in a barrel, put him out in the garage. So once again, this stuff happens. This stuff happens regardless of where you live.
It doesn't matter. It's things happen even in my community. I mean, I'm not saying that people are getting shot and stabbed and stuff like that. I mean, somebody committed suicide by gunshot. I mean, that could go through the freaking wall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these things tend to happen. I mean, like domestic disputes and stuff, they happen all the time. The cops are in and out of my community. It's a gated community.
Mm-hmm.
That don't matter. And I'm in a relatively nice area of Fort Myers, so it's I don't. No offense to whoever commented on what was this Ronald that commented on that post, but it really doesn't matter. Oh, my hood's worse than your hood. It really doesn't matter. Who gives a shit? It's all over the place. People are crazy, and it doesn't matter.
So my question would be: does Ronald have car insurance?
Right.
I mean, that's that's the closest parallel I can draw. Because
or does he keep
all have car insurance?
Or does he keep a fire extinguisher in his kitchen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's we all take safety precautions and do things. It's like wearing your seatbelt. Hopefully, you never ever need to have your seatbelt.
Yeah, but I only do that so my car stops dinging at me.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I knew a guy went as far. This guy used to put liners in the bottom of landfills, and so he had his guys take that liner material and put it in a CNC machine and cut out a blank seatbelt, and so you just put it in the receiver to get the damn alarm to stop going off. Because when you're a millionaire, you don't care about the tickets, right? I mean, the guy literally, he was doing jobs. These are state government contracts, right? The landfills ran by the county, so he's doing these multi-million-dollar jobs. So you're rolling around as a millionaire, you don't care about $150 seatbelt ticket. So he just popped that shit in there and stop beeping at him. Perfect.
But even still, I mean, it's all around us. It's human beings. I mean, I've been watching a lot of documentaries on like homicides and stuff like that lately, and it's like, people are like, every day people are dying. People are getting murdered every day. Like that's real. It's not just because it's not a serial killer or because it's not posted or plastered all over the fucking news doesn't mean it doesn't happen, and doesn't mean that it doesn't happen in your neighborhood.
You ever watch the first 48?
I think so.
That's the one where someone dies and they follow around the homicide detectives and they
for the first 48 hours.
If they don't find a suspect in 48 hours, yada yada yada. Carrie and I, we used to watch the hell out of that because when we first started dating, and for the longest time, we just had basic cable. Shows our age. Back before everybody cut their lines and was streaming everything, we had basic cable. So we would just have the basic cable, and then on Tuesdays we'd go out to Best Buy and buy used DVDs or the ones in Walmart in the big bin out in the middle of the aisle. That's how I ended up with 200 DVDs in my closet. But we would watch a lot of the first 48. Sadly, a lot of it's filmed in Cincinnati, Ohio, which Carrie and I were both born in hospitals or in Covington on the other side of the river. And so, it kind of strikes home. But one thing I noticed out of all the episodes, all the seasons of the first 48, with the exception of 2, every single person who got murdered was a direct result of a bad life choice. The 2 people who didn't, one of them was literally a diamond store owner, and people followed her home, killed her so they could get her keys and go back and steal Robert's store. And there was another story like that, but just about all the rest of them, it was, hung out with bad people, drug dealers gone bad, someone running their mouth, gang warfare, some poor woman who continuously dated the same piece of shit dude for years. So much of that is just a result of one bad life choice after the other.
The random stuff, we usually always know about it. That's the stuff that's usually in the news. Like, oh, there's a guy going around fucking, LA County fucking murdering people. Like, he's murdering one every couple of days. Like, we find out about, like, that's national news. Regular homicides that happen on a regular basis, gang related, whatever, drug related, that's it's all caused usually by, like you said, bad life choices and things like that. Randomness, I mean, that's such a rarity. It's like nobody just goes out and just pops somebody just for no fucking reason.
Unless
and if they do, they're gonna do it continuously because they're fucked in the head.
I think it had to have been 3 or 4 years ago. Somebody in Cape Coral road rage incident, or no, something happened. I remember he drove down to the 7-Eleven on Palm Avenue down off Cape Coral Parkway, over by where the Cape Coral golf course used to be that they shut down. Palm Boulevard. He shot somebody there. He shot the 7-Eleven tenant in the driveway in the parking lot, and then before he got there, he shot somebody. He went on a shooting spree through Cape Coral. So yeah, as Mike said, the randomness is super random, but to what we were talking about previously, that you never know when that randomness happens. If there's at least 3 other motherfuckers in that parking lot, they could take that guy out quicker than if there was no other motherfuckers in that parking lot with firearms. And so that's why you want the firearm. It's for when that guy shows up and you and your family are stuck back behind the beer and the nerds in the back of the 7-Eleven. Some dude's out there in a parking lot with a shotgun, and you're just hoping somebody around a good aim and take him out quick.
Well, the interesting thing is you never hear about that.
No, because that doesn't get plastered in the news.
They're quick to report, when the active shooter's around, but they're not real quick to report when somebody, legal concealed carry takes him out. Perfect example, where I'm from, guy walks into the local shopping mall with an AR, takes out 3 people in the clothing store, the department store, walks out into the common area of the mall. Guy with a 9mm sees him coming, drops down behind a planter, 3 shots, takes the guy out.
Yep.
That part of it kind of got glossed over.
That's because it doesn't help the narrative. The narrative is guns are dangerous. We need to take them away from everybody. And if you report that goes with the narrative that conservatives use, which is, we need good guys with guns to fight off the bad guys with guns. It all comes down, basically, at the end of the day, it all comes down to lack of education, and more importantly, because we're seeing this on the pedo side too, mankind is just losing their goddamn mind. People have completely, more and more daily, we're seeing people completely disregard for human life. It comes down to that. Disregard for human life. Mm-hmm. And it blows, and this was not the intention of where we're going with this episode, but it goes where it goes. One of the things that just it doesn't anger me, because I've accepted the fact that there's a lot of dumb people in the world. But I just see these people and they're like, well, we need more gun laws. We need more gun laws. It's like, how old are you? You're 50?
Yeah.
You're 10 years older than me. You remember the Just Say No to Drugs campaign? Crack, heroin, pot, all that stuff's been illegal since Vietnam, because Nixon was afraid we were going to lose the war because everybody's getting hooked on drugs over in Vietnam, and so they had to pass laws here that they could hold over the heads of their soldiers. Not that it worked, but that's part of the reason things got so heavily into the war on drugs, and then Reagan took off with it. How many people over the last 45 years have had the ability to just go out and buy crack, buy weed, buy fentanyl, buy acid, buy mushrooms? All that shit up until recently has been illegal. People still got it. And once again, the people who have decided they're going to kill somebody, murder, regardless of what country you're in, well, except for maybe if you're in the Middle East, with the exception of those, murder is like the worst fucking thing you can do, regardless of what country you're in. That's the one law that we can all agree on is going to get you either hung or life in prison. The people who've decided to break that law, they've already come to the conclusion that fuck that law, they're not going to pause and say, well, gee, I've gone ahead and decided I'm going to kill somebody, thus break the world's most law that we all agree on, but this one law that says I'm not allowed to buy a firearm, that's just going to slow me down. Well, then they say, well, but if the guns are illegal, then they won't have access to them. Once again, I never smoked crack. I guarantee if I tried hard enough, in 2 days, I could probably find a rock of crack. And the shit's still illegal. Has nothing to do with
look at what's
the availability
going on over in Britain right now. I mean, there's people getting stabbed and slashed, and so it's like the problem isn't the conveyance. The problem is that people are just deranged.
And more people are getting more and more deranged.
You tell those little girls at the Taylor Swift dance class in London that got all cut up that, oh yeah, well, it's a good thing he didn't have a gun.
And going back to working at the radio station, I haven't worked at Stan Haney in 6 years. Back when I worked there, I was showing Stan, hey, go on Google and Google search United Kingdom knife surrender box. And there's posters of them having marches, ban knives, just like you would see the anti-gun movement here. They had, because guns were legal there, they have there's photos on Google, you can see them. It's a drop box with Cookie Monster on the side telling people to surrender their knives. In Japan, and I think it's Japan, it's either Japan or China, there's some videos, I'm sure it looked real enough, showed a guy going to a cutlery shop. Hey, I need to buy some steak knives or sushi knives, whatever they use their knife for.
I was just about to say, how do you differentiate between like a pocket knife or a machete or something like that and a fucking kitchen knife to cut steaks?
Well,
you can't.
Exactly. And in Japan, they showed this guy at this cutlery shop. They take his ID, they write his information down, and then they laser etch a Quirky code on the blade of his knife, registering that knife to fucking him. My question is, when you're over in the United Kingdom and you go to a steakhouse or somewhere, does the waiter have to come and cut your steak for you, or do they take your ID and give you a knife, and then when you leave, you got to change it back in?
The crazy thing is, if I understand it correctly, in the UK, you can't have a pointy knife. They make all of their steak knives less stabby by blunting the end. It still has a sharpish edge on it, but it's basically like a sharp butter knife. So you can't use it to stab people.
You can still bludgeon a motherfucker.
You can get through fucking skin.
I was saying,
push hard enough.
That's where the dictionary phrase of bludgeon comes in. That's what the bludgeon means, right? To kill somebody with a dull instrument.
Right. And you just said it right there too. Like a baseball bat. That's for a fucking game.
Yeah.
I can still split a wig with it.
People get beat to death with baseball bats all the fucking time. Baseball bats, crowbars, four-ways in cars, everything. It doesn't, anything can become a weapon
split a wig
if
with
you
a
try hard
skateboard.
enough and you want to fucking hurt somebody. Anything can become a weapon.
You grab that back truck of a skateboard, you could split and use the edge of that board, you can split someone's wig right open.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
I can sit on somebody and suffocate them,
or get them off.
Now I'm a
Depends on how much
weapon.
they're paying. But yeah, it's
$100, Daddy. What you got?
It's crazy. It's nuts. But the bigger point is we need to focus on why people have completely lost appreciation for human life.
Well, so if we really wanted to solve this problem, we would address mental health issues before we would address me owning a gun.
Mm-hmm. But unless you're talking about gun laws that require a mental health background check for everybody, then they're more than happy to talk about the mental health aspect.
But I don't
I
don't think that this is a major epidemic now.
No, it's
I don't
not.
think I think it always has been a problem. But now it's come into light because everybody has news in their pocket.
Well, to that point,
everybody has that info. Anybody can Google anything right now.
But to that point as well, to steal Adam Carolla's bit, look at me personally. I think I've lost count. I mean, I got an M1 Garand right fucking there. I got rifles. In this room alone that I'm sitting in, I can count 2 shotguns and 2 rifles. Okay? That's not counting my 3 handguns in the other room. So me, myself, and I have over 7 firearms. To Adam Carolla's point, if gun murder was this epidemic that they say it is, with the amount of firearms that we have in this country, there'd be fucking hundreds a day. But it's not an epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
It's few random people losing their shit, or as mentioned formerly, bad life choices. And one of the things they like to do if you were to look up, when you look up homicide deaths or just deaths each year by firearms, they include accidental discharge. They also include cops clean shooting a perpetrator.
Gangs.
Anything relating to a gun, whether it's a cop, a guy accidentally shooting himself in the foot, gang crimes, all that falls into the one basket. When you start parsing those out and separating them and say, okay, just violent perpetrator versus victim, just a clear-cut perpetrator versus victim, more people are bludgeoned to death each year. And to that point, and once again, one's too many, but it's interesting to me that the firearm thing is easy to go after because not everybody's into it, right?
Yeah.
Everybody likes to drive. 4 years ago, the last time I drove to Georgia, and anybody who's driven to Georgia, they can attest to this unless they took it down. As soon as you drive into Georgia, they would have this big-ass billboard that said the amount of vehicular deaths in the state of Georgia this year. I drove through in fucking February. January, February. It was already up to 1,500 people in 2 fucking months. So 15, not in the nation, in the state of Georgia. But no one's calling for, need to take car. Well, actually they are. I guess that's why they want self-driving cars. Never mind. I guess I didn't mean any of that.
So the difference is that you can't use a car to fight a tyrannical government.
Correct.
And that's really what the gun control thing is. And, sadly, I lost all of mine in a kayaking accident. So
it's been known to happen.
I currently have none in my possession.
It's been known to happen. And we'll change the subject to a lighter tone, but I just want to bring this up, and I've talked about this before, and this is going to be fucking harsh, but it is what it is. You have family members now are able to sue the manufacturer of the firearms, right? You got people going after Glock or whoever. Why hasn't anybody done a class action lawsuit against Comcast, Android, i.e. Google, and Apple? More children and more people are sexually abused, sexually exploited, sexually trafficked, and raped, and more child pornography is filmed and distributed through the internet via internet-connected devices with built-in cameras. Right? Why is no one suing the manufacturer of the internet-connected devices with built-in cameras? Why is it that no one has to have a background check to buy a cell phone? Because we can all agree that just because you own a cell phone and an internet-connected device with a built-in camera doesn't mean you're a fucking pedophile or a pervert. Right? We all can agree on that, which is why we don't require that. That doesn't mean that pedophile and perverts aren't going to get a hold of that tool and use it for nefarious reasons, such as sex trafficking and the exploitation of minors. We can all agree on that. We can all agree that the cell phone isn't going to make you a pervert. But for some reason, we can't agree on the firearm's not going to make you a homicidal maniac. That's a leap too far.
Guns don't kill people.
And why is that?
Kill people.
Because everybody has a cell phone. Not everybody has a gun. And there's less gun owners than there are cell phone owners. And so that's why it's easy to go after the gun owners versus the car owners and the cell phone owners, because we are all saying, and we can agree that cars don't make you a fucking, a drunk driver, and cell phones don't make you a pervert. But for some reason, they want to convince the world that owning this firearm, you will at some point just unjustifiably kill somebody. It's going to happen.
Well, and that's the same argument that I've seen around the internet a few times, that, okay, so the pencil is why you failed the test.
The fork is why you're fat.
Well, my fork is why I'm fat.
The fork
Actually,
is
the reason why you're fat
right.
is because in the 90s, the big 3 cigarette companies, they started buying out all the food companies and putting fucking corn sugar and all the addictive additives to it. And all of our food is making us fat. As somebody who's
I should go
actively
back to
trying to
smoking
stop eating
cigarettes.
sugar, despite the fact I'm drinking a Coke right now, here's a fun game. Here's a fun game, which is the only one I've had all day. Here's a fun game. Even if you don't do it, right?
This doesn't sound fun.
Even if you don't have,
It's not fun at
even
all,
if
I
you
can
don't
promise.
do it, next time you walk into a gas station, just pretend that you're not eating sugar, and then do just a quick mind game. How many things in this store can I buy? The answer is about 0.1%. Your ass is either getting a bottle of water. If you're lucky, they got unsweet iced tea, and then maybe a beef stick. Other than that, you can't have shit in that entire place. Even the peanuts are covered in caramelized, sugarized bullshit. It's so insane.
Maybe if you're lucky and you go into one with a banana or something in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, technically, in the words of our friend Vinny Tortledge, your liver does not know the difference between real sugar and artificial sweeteners. So if you're not on sugar, you're not eating bananas, strawberries, or fucking pineapple either. Like if you're straight legit going no
I
sugar.
call bullshit on that one.
Really?
I've been eating bananas. I'm down 25 pounds. I mean,
Let's get your
you
shit
know,
nonstop.
it's all the other huh?
Yeah, it is. It's all the other shit.
But I think there's
You
a
know, I
difference
mean,
between natural sugars and added sugars.
It depends on how hardcore
There's
you
a
want to
difference
get.
between eating a banana and going to Waffle House four times a week while you're on vacation.
Unless you're just
having banana pancakes or
unless
banana
you're
split or something.
exactly.
unless you're just eating the steak and the eggs like I do.
Huh?
Unless you're just getting the steak
Yeah,
and the eggs.
Yeah.
I can't go to a Waffle House without getting, a double waffle and a triple hash brown. It just doesn't work.
What are you, a child?
Yeah.
Do you get the Mickey Mouse pancakes? Have them put the little ears on for you?
Yeah.
My daughter eats pancakes and waffles with no syrup.
Is she a communist?
Goodness.
Yeah,
What kind
I
of
mean,
parent
really.
are you, Don? Jeez.
Jesus.
it's a carryover before she was our child. Just put it that way.
Well,
But
you
yeah,
need to fucking nip that shit.
Oh, I tried it. I put a little bit of syrup on her. I mean, I'm happy that she's not getting the sugar, but no, I'm like, isn't that dry? It's like eating styrofoam. Eating a pancake or a waffle with no syrup is like eating styrofoam.
The only thing, like, because sometimes I'd put like peanut butter on waffles or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
That'd be the only thing. That'd be really the only other thing that I could think of that, like, okay, I can go without the syrup.
This is a good topic.
Yeah.
Let's talk about poor people foods, or just weird foods. So
Cheese?
poor. You mean poor people foods like something that you would make or eat because you like something special that you would make or eat because you didn't have the money?
stuff that you
Are we
ate.
talking ketchup soup poor?
Yeah.
The stuff that you ate that you thought was just something everybody ate, but it turns out, you get to college or high school and you realize, oh, not everybody put butter and sugar on bread.
Hey,
But
that shit
everybody
was
did.
the bomb.
Not
that was dope, man.
Not everybody
Butter
peels a
bread
potato
with
and eats it
sugar
with
and
salt.
cinnamon and butter.
To this day,
So,
I can
I
still,
got one.
Salty potato.
I can still to this day peel a potato and just eat it plain with salt.
So let me ask you guys this, because I thought this was something everybody did, but apparently I'm some kind of freak. I like to take tortillas and put peanut butter and jelly on them.
Sure.
I told somebody about that, and they looked at me like I had two heads. Like,
I
what
can't-
the
done that.
fuck's wrong with you?
I
I've
can't
done
abide
that.
by that.
If I want a fucking a sweet fixin' and I ain't got no bread, but I got half a pack of tortillas left, fuck it, I'm throwing it on there.
It's not even
Yeah.
it's not even a lateral move there, because I remember during one of the hurricanes where we didn't have power and electricity for 16 days, we ran out of hot dog buns and we tried to substitute the buns for a tortilla. It's not the same. It's not the same.
Limits. I mean, tortillas are like the most versatile thing in the world, but they aren't hot dog buns. I mean, they're
And they were even
let's be
flour
honest.
tortillas. Not like I was a weirdo doing it with a corn tortilla, but
Oh, jeez.
Oh no corn tortillas. We're talking flour tortillas. With
We're
peanut
talking
butter and
American fattening white tortillas.
jelly. That's right. That's right.
Huh.
Where
Weird
do you guys
food.
stand on potato chips on sandwiches?
I can dig it.
Slap
Don't
some.
do it. I
Yeah.
don't do it regularly, but I can dig it.
I'm down with it. The rippled chips though. I can't
Good
do
point.
like regular ones.
Hot Dog Chris, God rest his soul, when he ran Beach Dogs before he sold his cart to start driving van at K Rock, he had the Stan Haney hot dogs and the D Train dogs. And one of the things he's like, "How do you like your hot dogs?" I'm like, "Mustard and potato chips." So when you went there and you ordered a D Train dog, he would crumple up plain potato chips and put it on your hot dog.
Fucking A, that's cool as shit.
Where do you stand
Yeah, it
on
is.
plain Lay's potato chips crumpled up on your pizza?
Never done that.
Can't say I've done it.
Now that came from back in the day. Do they still sell the Chef Boyle RD pizza kit in a box?
I think so.
I haven't seen it. Of course,
I haven't
don't
seen
really
one
actually
since
go in the store.
1996. They used to be
I mean, that's like a totally 80s thing. I mean,
I remember in the 80s it was a red box, and then they transitioned into the super cliche Italian box where it was red, white, and green. But my dad would do that. You'd buy the box, you'd mix the dough, you'd put it on the bowl, and then you would, when you preheat the oven, you would sit the bowl on top of the stove so that the heat would help make the dough rise. Which the dough was always super thin, always had holes in it. And then to someone's point earlier about ketchup soup, you would use the pizza sauce that came in this kit, which was basically ketchup with some Italian seasoning and some sausages dumped into it, and then come with a bag of pre-sliced cheese you put on there, and you toss it in the oven for 20 minutes or however long. But we would thicken up the crust, thicken up we would basically, that's where crumpled up potato chips on our pizza came from. We carried it over from eating homemade Chef Boyardee pizza in a box.
yeah, you can still get it. Now, let me ask you another question. Did you ever make homemade pizza using the pop open biscuit dough?
No, we saved those for donuts.
No, I've heard of it though. I think
It's
I've
actually
seen
pretty
it
freaking
done.
good. I used to do that all the time.
It's
Yeah.
amazing how many houses didn't burn down in the 80s and 90s because all of us were at home making homemade donuts with nothing more than a pot full of vegetable oil on an open flame or a fucking hot burner and just putting Pillsbury dough biscuits in there, making homemade donuts and putting them in sugar and
Hey,
So,
did
yeah.
did your parents ever? I remember my mother specifically doing this quite often. Did you during the wintertime, did your parents ever turn on the oven and open the door just to get a little extra added heat in the fucking
So-
house?
no.
So I was so poor growing up that we got our heat shut off,
Yeah.
but we had the stove on, all four burners and the oven. And my cat decided to walk across the
Ooh.
stove
Oh
like
no!
he did, no matter how much we beat him. And all four burners were on, and this dumbass cat burned all four of his paws off.
So now you gotta pay for a
walking
vet
across the
bill.
stove with all the burners on.
Oh
You know,
fuck!
like-
What an idiot!
Remember the
Stupid
And,
cat.
growing up, my life was so screwed that I'd look at my situation and I'm like, this kind of shit doesn't happen to beef. It's like the kid doesn't walk across the fucking stove.
or those
with the
rich little
burners
assholes on
Come
the Brady Bunch. So Mike, you weren't here, but on the episode we had Scott Gibson on, I was talking about the haunted house I lived in Richwood, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
To your answer, Mike, no, we didn't use the oven to heat our house because that's electric and that costs too much money, and chances are electric was shut off.
Sure.
In the 70s and 80s, a big thing up north, Kentucky, Ohio, Tennessee, Indiana, kerosene heaters were all the rage.
Yeah.
And these are the big round ones that had the heating duct in the middle, and then on top it had a cooling plate which doubled as a hot plate to cook your food on.
Yeah.
Made the entire house smell like kerosene, which was lovely.
Mm-hmm.
But even that was a bit too far. And I don't know what happened to Morgan, but this is the house we had. This house was from the mid to late 1800s. And so in basically the living room and the kitchen, the bedrooms had old fireplaces in them. Most of them didn't work anymore. But in the living room and the kitchen, we had coal burning stoves. And so we would go out to the barn where at the beginning of the fall, our grandfather would bring over a load of coal and dump off in the garage, and we would have to go out there and shovel coal into buckets.
Mm-hmm.
Or if my mom brought home firewood from somewhere, we would heat our house with coal and or firewood. And that's the same wood burning stove that at age 6 I got tired of being spanked with a wooden paddle. So when no one was looking, I inadvertently heated the kitchen with the wooden paddle, which I told my mom at 16. Remember the paddle with the air holes? Yeah. You ever find it? No. Yeah, I threw it in the wood burning stove. Quit spanking with me. And so yeah, we actually, not only did we heat our house with wood and coal in the wintertime, here's a staple being white, well, just being poor. I'll say white trash, but I'm going to be a little nicer. Here's a staple of being poor in the rural areas. When you live out in the middle of nowhere, you have to pay for your trash pickup. It doesn't come part of your taxes. You pay a monthly fee, which most people don't have because they're already paying the water guy to bring water down to their cistern.
You had trash pickup?
No.
When I lived in North Carolina, we didn't.
We separated the combustibles from the non-combustibles and the explosives from the non-explosives. And the safe combustible stuff got burnt out in the wood pile, and the non-combustibles got put in a trash bag, which inadvertently ended up in the trunk of your car, which got dumped in the dumpster at the gas station at midnight. So you would burn. And I remember at that same house, we were burning trash in a leaf pile. I remember this day. Don't answer the door. Fucking fire department's trying to get on our property and put out the. My mom's like, shh. Fire department's out there. We're hiding from the fire department because they want to come on our property and put out the fucking big ass trash fire. It's like, no.
Well, see,
I've actually had the fire department to my house here in South Fort Myers because I was having a bonfire and my neighbor took exception to it. I could see they had the rollers on.
Did he demand satisfaction? My cousin to this day has
every house until they figured out that it was mine, and they come walking back, and I'm like, "Hey guys, want a hot dog?" And they're like, "Yeah,
why not?"
And I'm like, well, "What can I do for you?" And they're like, "Hey, your neighbor called us." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." And they're like, "We can't tell you to put the fire out. We're not going to put it out, but we're going to ask you to put it out." And they're like, "You gonna comply?" And I'm like,
"No.
Look, you guys are the ones that are going to come when my fat ass is having a heart attack. It's like the last thing I want to do is piss y'all off."
Yeah.
So,
my cousin has a brand on his back because when you put 7, 8, and 12-year-old boys in charge of burning trash, you think they're going to take the time to remove the combustibles and the explosives. No. You think they're going to take the time to make sure every 2-liter has the lid removed? No. So my cousin was burning trash, and knowing what you do when you burn trash, you poke it with a stick, because why not? You're a fucking 7-year-old boy burning trash. And a 2-liter Mountain Dew bottle blew up, and the plastic landed on his back and burnt through his shirt and right next to his shoulder blade. Burnt the shit out of him. One time I was...
Oh, that hurts just thinking about it.
I was burning trash. My sister didn't separate her bathroom trash and just brought it all. And luckily I walked 10 feet away up to the road, and her hairspray can blew up. Blew the entire fucking fire out. Now see, these are what you call life lessons, learning experiences, true education. So fast forward.
Doesn't kill you, makes you stronger.
Fast forward 5 years later, when I'm standing in a graduation party from the suburb high school I graduated from, and someone who has a bunch of property invites everybody out to a graduation party, and I see some fellas roll a big ass empty mini keg into the bonfire. Guess what this guy did? I fucking went home. Because I knew that at some point that shit was going to blow up, and I wasn't going to be the guy trying to convince 4 fucking drunk, jocks that, hey, that's not a good idea, fellas. I think I heard later at some point someone got smart and rolled that out of the bonfire. But yeah, they literally put an empty mini beer keg in a bonfire.
It's funny. I have a pretty unique perspective growing up. because I grew up here, but I also grew up in the mountains. Spent my teen years in the mountains, and I spent my younger adolescence here. So when I was growing up and I was living with my mother, we were going in and out of apartments and stuff like that. Um, a lot of the time the heat didn't work, kind of going back to the whole heat thing. And because it's Florida, like you hardly ever need it, but we always get that cold snap. Well, it would seem, at least nowadays, it seemed like it was so much colder when I was a kid as opposed to now.
You're skinnier.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so that was why she would always turn on the stove and stuff like that, is because we didn't have, and we'd have space heaters and shit like that. In the other perspective of living in the mountains in my teen years, a lot of those houses didn't have central heat and air. My first house that I lived in, it was a single wide trailer, one 2 bedroom, one bathroom. It didn't have central heat and air. It had venting for it, but the guy never put in the units or the handler or the condenser outside.
And
So
by the way, trailers aren't spacious, so your
no,
HVAC vents are ran on the floor underneath.
exactly.
And so when the vents aren't there, you just have big openings to the outside world on your floor for every creature and critter to crawl up to and say, "Hi, everybody."
Exactly. So during the summertime, I didn't live there during the wintertime. I don't know how you were supposed to heat the house because there was no fireplace, there was no nothing. I would imagine you had to get space heaters in order to
Or
be there
kerosene.
during the winter. But we had one window shaker. It was huge. It went in the one window, and I
Swamp
kept that
cooler.
bitch on 60 all the time.
Yeah.
Like that thing was running constantly.
Well,
But
that's how
Yeah, yeah.
that
and other perspectives too, like where other houses that I lived in that area didn't have regular central heat and air. Like my parents' house that they bought up there didn't have central heat and air. They had window shakers in the summertime, and in the
Well,
wintertime they had a gas fireplace inside in the original house, and then the addition that they put on the house, they had a wood burning stove. So,
the trailer my mom lived in down at the Ohio River on my grandmother's property, the first trailer was from like the 60s. It
mhm,
was old, beat up, no AC like you're saying. And
yeah,
summertime in August in Kentucky on the Ohio River, it got hot in there. We had a window rattler in there. Some point when I lived in Ohio, something happened, that place burnt down, and so when they got the insurance money, the new trailers put in, that one came with central air. So huge difference. But you see the trailers, how they have that little skirt around it. It serves
underbidding.
two purposes. One, it serves three. One, it looks better than people seeing your fucking pipes and your toilet pipes. Two, it keeps the aforementioned critters out of there. But it actually serves
If it's still intact.
yeah, and it serves a hugely important purpose in the wintertime. Its key job
block.
is to keep your fucking water pipes from freezing. And so,
Yeah.
and even still, a lot of people are underneath their trailers with a fucking blowtorch trying to, heat up those metal pipes. But yeah, so many people, so many winter
I
times.
I there was a few times that I remember, oh fuck, the main pipe on the outside of the house froze
Oh,
and we didn't have water. And it was like, wait until it either unfreezes or get out dad's torch kit from when he was doing plumbing back in the day and heat it up and see
Yeah.
if we can melt it. And that's the way it went.
So growing up in Oregon, nobody had central air. So the few days that it got to 100 degrees, everybody was dying. And, same thing. It was, the first house that I bought after I got married uh, was 100 years old.
yep.
And literally the walls were lined with newspaper. So,
And they had the slat
no
wood,
amount of heat. Yeah, no amount of heat was keeping that place warm.
single
So
pane
it's kind
windows.
of interesting.
Yeah, my dad's house in California. When I moved to California in 2001, once again, lived in Long Beach, right down the street from the Pacific Ocean. Pacific Ocean's always cold. His house in Long Beach did not have central air because it was built in the 40s, and it only got hot maybe a week out of the year. So he just put up, a portable AC in his living room, and if he needed to pull it out. But yeah, same thing. You just open the windows, it's constant breeze, and at night it
Hmm.
got cold.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to pick up where we left off last week and do a little more music-based content. We're going to hand this one over to Morgan Long before we wrap up the show. Go ahead, Morgan. You want to talk more music?
Okay, so I had an interesting question, and
Uh-oh.
I've given this a lot of thought, and I haven't come up with a definitive answer for my generation. All of us are a little, you know, we all have different eras. Um, I was thinking a lot about this. I was born in 71, and I can remember the first song. I mean, my dad was a music freak. So, I grew up listening to Motown and, Beatles and Neil Diamond and all kinds of stuff. But I remember the first song that I ever heard that I liked just because I liked it was 1980 Heart of Glass by Blondie. So that's kind of where my musical awareness started. And so I kind of give myself the era between, 1980 and 1990, 91 when I graduated from high school, joined the army, that kind of stuff. So my question is, what is the most epic artist or band from your era?
Now, to be fair, I don't think because there's such a wide swath of music preference. I think we have to go based on Billboard radio, not our personal preference. Because if we're saying epic to represent our generation, I can't go there because I listen to music that no one listens. Yeah, but I think the general public when you hear epic, and I'll give you and here's the reason why I say that.
Okay.
To go back to your point, the first song I can cognitively think of is not an artist that I would listen to, but it was all over the radio because I was born in 78. So, okay, at 1 and 2, you're not going to cognitively recognize and understand music. So we're just going to, for the sake of argument, we're going to skip to 5, 6 years old, right? Around that time, around 1984, who is the biggest fucking name on radio and entertainment, hands down?
Probably Motley Crue.
Journey.
Michael fucking Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
Beat It, Thriller.
That's my whole point.
Billie Jean. I'm not a Michael Jackson fan, but the first song I can cognitively remember, and all my cousins have the posters, all the little kids wearing the white gloves and the fake pleather Michael Jackson Beat It Jack. Michael Jackson was on McDonald's commercials. He was on, MTV. We Are the World was around. I mean, it was just all Michael Jackson all the time. And so for generation, from 1980 till 1990, I would say it has to be Michael Jackson. And then when you transition in the 90s, to Mike's point, you had the Motley Crue, the Skid Row, the Bon Jovis. I wasn't into the hair bands either. By that point, I discovered skateboarding, which was still subculture. So along with skateboarding subculture community came subculture music. So while my contemporaries were listening to MC Hammer, Michael Jackson, New Kids on the Block, Skid Row, Alice Cooper, I was listening to Dead Milkmen, DRI, Testament, Nuclear Assault, Anthrax, Metallica, Megadeth. And so I'm not qualified to say what the epic band is for my generation. So I would have to default to a Michael Jackson. The Mariah Carey's, fucking Paula Abdul was huge. But even still, Aerosmith was still putting out top 10 hits. Eric Clapton. So even the cats moving from the 60s and 70s, they were during that timeline. There was just so I don't know if I could pin down one particular epic group for the 80s and 90s.
That is such a huge difference from today too.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is the more I thought about it, like my musical taste is so diverse. I mean, I love 70s classic rock. I love, old school hip hop, gangster rap, something that we'll probably transition out of this quickly into another quick
We're
question
gonna
that,
ask Mike his question.
is a little easier to answer. But so let me ask this next one. What is your guilty pleasure music? Something that you know you're not supposed to enjoy, but you enjoy. Like if somebody looked at me and they said, "What kind of music do you listen to when nobody's around?" I listen
Polka.
to early '90s R&B,
Oh my god.
Jodeci,
Okay.
Oh
and
my god.
Shy,
You're a Boys to
and
Men.
Fucking
JBZ,
Boys to
BBZ.
stuff
Men.
like that.
Oh
You know,
god.
Just
I'm listening to R.
getting
Kelly and
it.
rolling down the road,
He
and
just getting it like,
people,
yeah.
yeah, and so people would look at this fat 53-year-old bald white guy with a gray goatee, and they're like,
Bobbing his head, and they don't realize what's coming out of
yeah,
the speakers in the truck.
exactly. I mean, it could be Forever My Lady by Jodeci, or I don't see nothing wrong with a little bump and grind. Yeah, who knows?
He
But they're gonna
transitioned
look at
out of
this
it when
fat old
Shaggy
white
was
guy.
big.
It wasn't me.
You know,
Just
there,
saying.
that reminds me of somebody else ended up doing it like 4 months after I got the idea, but I had the idea when I was going to the gym all the time. I just couldn't bring myself to walk up to strangers at the gym and videotape them, but I knew what, at the time I was 38, 40, I knew walking around these young cats looking at 40-year-old me thinking I'm listening to old ass music, and here I am listening to DMX from the 90s and this and that. I always thought it'd be a good bit, and like I said, somebody else ended up doing on TikTok, just go around and find someone, take a screenshot, propose a question, what do you think they're listening to? And then, this guy's clearly listening to, here's a black dude, he's clearly listening to X, Y, and Z, and it turns out he's listening to Elton John. It would be such a great, because it totally destroys people's.
It breaks the stereotype.
Yeah. Because, here's.
All right, Don. So
no,
what's
Mike,
your guilty pleasure
hold on.
music?
Mike didn't answer the first question.
The epic.
See, I can't answer any of these questions because music has been such a big, huge part of my life.
It's been a huge part of my life, too.
In such a major way.
Exactly.
For me, being a musician, going through marching band, and, like when I was growing up, like my dad listened to classic rock, 60s, 70s, 80s. My stepdad, believe it or not, who was older than everybody, I think he passed away when he was 71 or 72 a few years ago. He listened to dance music, not only from the 70s and 80s, disco, and then into the 80s era, but newer stuff from like the 2000s and even up into the teens. Prior to him passing away, he listened to like Four on the Floor, like dance music, like David Guetta and Styline and all these different kinds of like electronic dancey music artists.
Okay,
so
hold
I
on.
kind of pulled a little bit from that, and then I pulled the classic rock stuff from my dad. My grandparents were in their 80s and 90s when I was growing up. They listened to fucking Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and so I. Interesting
Which
enough,
is fantastic music.
Yeah, I fucking love it.
Okay,
my
Carrie's
cousins.
Hold on,
my
Carrie's
cousins
in the studio
listen to
real
gangster
quick.
rap.
Carrie's in the studio real quick.
Okay.
The question is, Carrie, for your generation, and Morgan was born in 71, and I was born in 78.
Why you telling my age?
I'm not. For your generation, what do you think your generation's concept of the most epic artist of your time would be? And I put out the caveat, it didn't have to be someone that you personally liked, because for me, being from the 78 and the 80s, Michael Jackson was fucking huge. He was all over the place. So you say Michael Jackson as well?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what genre you listen to. Because, like, if you
That's a big question too.
I would say like.
I didn't hear
what genre it is too.
Yeah, she said based on what genre it is, because if it's rock, it'd be Motley Crue.
That was going to be the other point if we really ran this out, because in my time,
Madonna, Michael Jackson.
I listened to, so it's really George Strait.
Well, that's why I think that's why I put out the caveat. I think you almost have to base it off of what the music, the radio on the music on the radio.
What was popular? Okay, and that also depends on, I think,
Madonna
the time
was
period
fucking
in your
huge.
life too.
Yeah.
Because
But if you think about it,
go ahead.
well, if you think about it, it's like Stan and Haney always used to say on the on the Wayback Machine.
Yeah.
It's it you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
You look at the early '80s. You had Juice Newton, you had Kenny and Dolly, you had so
Captain
many
and Tennille.
country acts that were that were actually considered top 40
Yeah.
by their record sales, and
Yeah.
their airplay. So it's
If you're talking,
so
if
I guess my whole point is that when I originally proposed this question, I thought it was going to be a simple answer like Journey or Led Zeppelin
so would you say you get into more like, okay, top 40 pop culture music? What was probably the most iconic artist from your generation, or iconic song, or something like that?
Oh, it would be Thriller, hands down.
Right.
And
Right.
that's the thing. So and again, like Carrie said, it comes down to genre.
Yeah.
Because at the same time that Michael Jackson was huge in top 40 or R&B or urban contemporary, Alabama was just as huge on the country charts.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about back then is, we were talking about this with Scott Gibson. Back in the day, actors had to be full-blown entertainers. You had to sing, you had to dance, you had to act, you had to do the whole thing. And that has since kind of gone away. But even
are you talking about like black and white act?
I'm talking about
like
back in the day,
oh no,
all the way up until the 70s,
like show business, Broadway type stuff.
Yeah, we're talking about like how Sammy Davis Jr. He was a comedian, he was an actor, he was a tap dancer.
He could sing,
and to this point, up until the 80s,
if you could act, sing, and dance.
Yeah,
up into the 80s, TV show actors were expected to sing. Fucking David Hasselhoff put out albums. Captain Kirk put out spoken word like hippie jazz albums. Yeah. Vicki Lawrence.
The Night's Light went out in Georgia.
#1 on the Billboard charts in 1973. The woman who went on to play Carol Burnett in the later years had a top #1 hit. The lights went out. When the lights went out in Georgia. Yeah. Say that 18 times fast.
But again, I think we're also, you have to think about like, okay, well, what was popular when, it was like a shake. If you're thinking about like, when I was like 5, 6 years old, because that's what Don mentioned. But when I think about it, because I've pondered these types of questions before, like, what would be my generation of music? What's the stereotypical generation of music for a guy in his 30s, early 30s? And
for your generation to be Modest Mouse?
Well, I would honestly think it would be considered like your teenage years. The years that you're in adolescence in high school and just out of high school and up until probably maybe 25 at the latest.
I would say
after that point, that's where I really got to a point where music didn't sound the same. It changed.
To that point,
and that was where I kind of grew out of it.
I think to that point, you're absolutely right. I think for most people, unless they were like from a super restrictive family, for most open, popular pop culture family, I think you're correct. I think you start to pay attention to music around 7th grade, maybe 6th grade. Mm-hmm. You kind of 5th grade, 6th grade, you kind of listen to what your parents listen to. Somewhere around 7th grade, your parents will let you start making your music choices. So I think for 7th grade up until the time you're in college into your late 20s, that is the key music realm for you.
Right.
For your generation.
For me, as far as a popular standpoint, I mean, that would be like fucking, mid 2000s to early 2010s rap and dance music and like shit like fucking Soulja Boy and stuff like that. Like, exactly. So, but
I liked
see,
Luda, but Luda didn't like me.
Right. I feel like I have such an eclectic taste in music that doesn't really fit
Everybody
me
get a
specifically. Because like I was saying earlier, my grandparents listen. I've got a playlist on Spotify right now that I'm building called Oldies, and it's nothing but
It's all
Frank
from the
Sinatra,
1990s.
like Nat King Cole and stuff like that.
1998.
No, no, we're talking like fucking 40s, 50s, and 60s. Wayne Newton and all kinds of shit like that. So, and then like I was saying, like my cousins listened to like gangster rap. And back then, like the early '90s, like 2000 or no, Tupac and Biggie and Ice Cube and NWA and fucking Wu Tang and Wu Tang is for the children.
You know
And
why
all
Wu-Tang is
these
from the
different
children?
I think I've heard this story. Yeah,
Haney used to make fun all the time. Wu-Tang's for the
yeah.
children. You know why Wu-Tang's for the children, Morgan?
I think wasn't it ODB said something to a news reporter or something like that.
ODB ran up on stage during the MTV Music Award or the Emmys, one of those awards, and kind of did a Kanye West, what Kanye did to Taylor Swift before Taylor Swift was Taylor Swift. But he ran up there, we were talking about how Wu-Tang is for the children. But the reason he did that is we all know Old Dirty Bastard's kind of a kook and semi-unstable. But the reason he did that, 3 days before he was in his recording studio putting down tracks when a Mustang came around the corner, lost control, ran over a 5-year-old, pinned it underneath the car, and he saw it happen out the window or through his office window, went outside. He got all the spectators around to help lift this Mustang off and pull the kid out, and then he sat at the hospital for the following 3 days while this kid was on life support. Yeah. And so he was in the mind state of, I just spent 3 days trying to pray that this kid survives. So that's what the whole Wu-Tang is for the children thing came out of.
Yeah. And then like my sister, she listened to pop shit. In her teenage years, it was
Debbie
like
Gibson
and Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears and all that kind of shit. Like when she was growing up, and my brother, he was really into like new metal and Korn and Limp Bizkit and Orgy and fucking Slipknot and all these different kinds of
stuff. All for the nookie.
Yeah, I mean like all this eclectic music, and then it just dumped on top of me, and now I fucking like everything. But if I was to say that I had a favorite band,
no, I think he was saying what's your guilty pleasure.
Guilty pleasure.
Yeah, what are you blaring when you have the windows rolled up, no one's around?
Right now, oldies. Right now, as a 32-year-old white man in a work truck going down 75.
Barry White,
like I was saying, like Frank Sinatra and Dino and Wayne Newton and
can't get enough of your love.
So you're really into the crooner thing right now,
huh?
You're into the crooner thing right now.
I don't know if I think what sparked it is my grandparents, when I was growing up, had this little music box kind of thing, and it was this clear plastic cylindrical deal with gold writing and a little bit of gold trim on it, and it was a wind-up little music thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just one of those things where the little metal bars, they had different tones.
Yeah, music box.
Yep. Yeah. And you could see it, and I thought it was cool. It was mechanical, but I'd wind it up and I'd listen to it, and it was "I Left My Heart in San Francisco" by Tony Bennett.
Uh-huh.
And it was just the chorus, tune to that. And that's always stuck with me for some reason. I don't know. I used to play with that, and I'd wind it up and I'd listen to that song all the time. And that kind of got me back into like listening to stuff like that, and kind of giving me a little bit of nostalgia, hanging out with my grandparents, because they're both, long gone now. But yeah, I mean, I think every now and again I get a wild hair up my ass, and I want to listen to something different because I get tired of the same old shit. When you're stuck, and when you get to a certain age, like you can only listen to "Don't Stop Believing" by Journey so many times before it gets repetitive.
It's funny. There's a particular radio station that likes to play a lot of old 80s and 90s or 70s rock here in town, and I often ask myself, how many people are driving around saying, "Thank God they played Dio again"? Like, fucking come on! No one wants to hear "Holy Diver" a millionth time.
So
thank really God he played "Stroking" one more fucking time.
Right.
I've been listening to a lot of political talk radio to the point of where I want to
Uh-oh.
jump off a building, so I stopped. And I've been having that same struggle as you've been having, Mike, where I, you know, my playlists, I've worn them out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I use Deezer as my streaming platform.
Hmm.
And I just put in 50s, 60s, and 70s the other day. And for the entire 8 hours I was at work, it was just this one playlist that somebody put together. And it was so freaking awesome because it reminded me of riding around in the car with my dad when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Have I got a treat for the
Listening
audience?
to Go for it.
You're talking about, because I don't want to get off this question before I answer it. I don't have a guilty pleasure because all the shit I listen to, I'm happy to fucking force people to listen to it in the car. And I am truly one of those people who, when I say I listen to everything, I listen to everything. But to your point, in radio stations, no big surprise, I'm a World War II reenactor. I like 40s music. We've had this gentleman on my show, What's the Scuttlebutt? He runs this website called WLVN 1940s Radio. Now, you're like, well, what's the... I can go listen to the World War II or the Swinging 40s on XM or Pandora. No. Him and his buddy went to the National Archives, and they got a hold of all these original recordings, commercials, baseball games from, like, a Cardinals game from
Nice.
1943. And he programs like a modern day radio station, so it's not a random playlist. Here's what's playing right now as we speak. Benny Goodman, After You're Gone. And you'll hear songs on here that you've heard before. You'll hear songs on here that you never heard. You'll hear public service announcements for rationing stamps. You'll hear commercials for the Civilian Conservation Corps. And so if you guys are not familiar with this, you're listening to the show and you like 1940s music and even stuff from the 1930s, and you don't want to listen to that same playlist that plays the same songs, go to WLVN 1940s Radio or go to what'sthescuttlebutt.com and click on the link. And I'll put this on in my background in my office, and I'll actually play it through just the built-in speaker on my computer, which is just a single mono speaker because that's what this shit was designed for.
Oh, it probably
So
sounds
it
great.
sounds realistic as hell just hearing it coming crackling out of my computer speaker on my miniature Lenovo. And my boss walked in one day. He's like, "It sounds like the goddamn Great Depression in here." But yeah, it's a very cool station. I want to see what's going to come up next.
And some have pretty faces. I am the
looks like
sheep
Nat
who knows
King
what
Cole.
loves
It's half past the hour, and you're listening to.
This is the only commercial you'll hear that's not
Montana's 1940s
authentic.
Radio station. You can listen live at WLVN1940sradio.com.
And I've actually reached out to him, and one of the things we're going to do, in particular, when I do this train event up in Paris, Florida, I'm going to send him descriptions of where this train is at and the timeline that we do. And then we're going to put Bluetooth speakers hidden in our tent. So after the train ride and they walk through our tent, as they're walking by and they're hearing this music play, you're going to hear these mock news stories come on talking about what happened at the event. So the people who are actually like, what, huh? That just happened like 50. And so he'll happily kind of update his playlist that day for any World War II events that are going on around town that people are interested in. And so, yeah, I just have this playing in the background.
Nice.
And he also streams it on YouTube and Spotify as well. But yeah, and if you scroll down to the bottom of that website, you'll see something really cool. But yeah, so
Yeah. Something familiar anyway.
yeah, so yeah, I don't have a guilty pleasure, but I listen. I mean, as Morgan heard before we went on the air, I was listening to Ren today. I mean, I literally listen to everything, fucking everything, with the exception of 1990s country. You can't.
We'll see.
My country goes from
actually-
1970s to 2013. I between 1985 and 2004, I skip. I'm not a fan of that country music at all. But you want to play?
So from
I'll
like
listen to.
1985 until like 1999. Country was, I listened to it a ton.
I'll listen to
Like,
Highwaymen.
so
I'll listen to
basically,
Merle Haggard. I'll listen to Willie. I'll listen to that. But Garth Brooks, no thanks. Conway, I don't want to hear about your Indian Outlaw half chart. No, I'm good on all that stuff. Because when my dad used to drive me from Columbus to Kentucky on the weekends to visit my mom, I'd lay in the back of our Chrysler Town and Country minivan with the wood paneling on the side, and I would actually lay behind the last seat in the hatchback, so if we got rear-ended, I wouldn't die.
Yeah.
And so the speaker's right by my head, and so it would just be a 2-hour ride of fucking 1990s fucking country just blaring.
The other
Confederate
kind of
Railroad,
guilty
not
pleasure
Confederate
thing that I've been into lately is bagpipes.
Okay.
So, because right now, I think it just finished, was like the pipe and drum competition in Scotland. So I've been seeing it all over YouTube and in my social media, and I don't know what it is. I mean, I think it's probably, my Irish and Scottish heritage, that every time I hear the pipes, I get goosebumps every time. It's
Well,
crazy.
what you need to do is you need to go on Pandora and play either the Stansfield radio, Flogging Molly radio, or Dropkick Murphy radio. The Stansfield, a lot, not so much bagpipes, but a lot of mandolin, a lot of banjos, but it's played in a more punk metal, Irish metal style sound. And so yeah,
Love Flogging Mollies, man.
Yeah, Flogging Molly. The Stansfields are great. There's a lot of those.
Have you ever heard of the Screaming Orphans?
That sounds familiar for me too.
Got to see them at the Irish Fest up at Centennial Park. Three Irish chicks. It's freaking awesome.
I guess the other guilty pleasure I would probably have in music is orchestral music.
Okay.
Movie themes.
Like John Williams and stuff like that.
Yeah, like John Williams, Charlie Clouser from the Saw films. Different types of composers and stuff like that did movie scores, but also just in general, like old school dudes like John Philip Sousa and
John Jacob Dingelheiser Schmidt.
I can't even think of anybody off the top of my head right now.
Hold on, Morgan.
But that's because of my background in marching band and music and stuff like that.
Well, while we're on the topic, favorite soundtrack, Morgan, go.
Xanadu.
Movie?
Yep. The CD, like you went out and bought the actual soundtrack and bumped it in your car.
Oh, well.
Pink Floyd The Wall does not count.
By the time... What's that?
Pink Floyd The Wall does not count as a soundtrack.
Neither does The Who's Tommy.
I'm not quite that old. Well, soundtrack. Oh boy, this is gosh, I almost hate to admit this.
He's going
Back to the Future.
Oh, he's going back in time. Going back in time.
But like I'm an '80s guy.
Sure.
So I mean, I've also had the soundtrack to New Jack City. So I mean, it's it runs the gamut.
I'll see your New Jack City and double down with Judgment Night. Judgment Night is where they took heavy metal bands and rap bands and made them do a song together. So you had Sonic Youth and Biohazard. Oh no, Sonic Youth and Cypress Hill.
And Public Enemy.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that was on that album, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's not my.
Yeah.
I think for me. No, Bring the Noise is off of Attack of the Killer Bees. No, Turn It Up, Bring the Noise. No, was that on the Man? Was that on the Man? Bring the Noise, I think was on Attack of the Killer Bees.
It was Anthrax and Public Enemy did that.
Yeah, that was on Attack of the Killer Bees, I believe. Because that's the song.
So, what's yours, Don?
I think I was on Attack of the Killer Bees. Hold on. American Hip Hop Funk included soundtrack 1987 film Lesson Zero song also. So it's actually from a soundtrack, but I think they also included on Attack of the Killer Bees. But prior to that, you had Anthrax and I'm the Man. So yeah, I'm the Man was kind of the first real heavy metal rap song. I guess I don't know if was I'm a Man out before Aerosmith and Run DMC.
I don't know. Aerosmith and Run DMC was like
I thought that was the first one.
Let's see. Anthrax, I'm the Man. What was the release date? 1988. Run DMC and Aerosmith. Run DMC, Aerosmith, Walk This Way. When did that come out?
which was terrible, by the way. I know that gets a lot of credit for crossover stuff, but that is like the
Oh,
biggest piece of
1986.
trash
I guess
ever.
they win, but I don't really. Yeah, so I definitely think Anthrax is more of a. So that'd be the first metal rap for a band. To answer the question, I still have both of these soundtracks. I think commercial wise, it would be the Crow soundtrack, but my personal favorite that I got more plays out of was the Lost Highway soundtrack, which was produced by Trent Reznor. The Lost Highway soundtrack was great. Yeah, and, you know, speaking of multiple genres, multiple songs, Lost Highway. Here, listen to the people on this soundtrack. Let's see here, Lost Highway.
He's actually him and I think Atticus Ross are doing one of the Marvel soundtracks or something like that. They just did a release at what the hell was it? The big Disney show that they do when they do the releases for everything for the year.
Listen to this swath of musicians on a soundtrack that came out in 1997 to a crazy ass movie that was built. Who did Eraserhead? It was David Lynch. So this is a David Lynch movie. Track number 1, I'm Deranged by David Bowie. Track number 2 was sound clips from the movie produced by Trent Reznor and Peter Christensen. Track 3 was Perfect Drug produced by Nine Inch Nails. Track 4, Red Bats with Teeth, which was Angelo Badattami, which I think he was an Italian cellist. American composer, arranger, known for music, notably scores for his acclaimed collaborations with blah, blah, blah. So this guy did more symphonic music, you know, playing a lot of cellos, and, you know, he was like a conductor.
Yeah.
I, by Smashing Pumpkins, was song number 6. Then Angelo did track number 7. Barry Adams did track number 8. Lou Reed, track number 9. Barry again on track 10. Angelo hit up track 11. Marilyn Manson on track 12. Antonio Carlos Jobim, who is a Brazilian musician. He played with Frank Sinatra and all them back in the days. And Marilyn Manson was on track 15. Angelina was on 16 and 17. Rammstein was on 18. Barry Anderson on 19 again. Rammstein on 20. Trent Reznor on 22. And then David Bowie on 23. So, I mean, that album was just...
What was Lou Reed's track?
Oh, the one you thought.
Wild Side?
No, This Magic Moment. He covered This Magic Moment. Have you ever heard that?
I have, yeah.
I haven't heard his version, no.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one. Let's see, Lou Reed. No, it's actually, he sped the tempo up on it.
Really?
Yeah, he actually... This Magic... Yeah, he kind of... there it is. Good thing we're not live streaming on YouTube, because then they would hit me they'd slap my hand with a PP notice. They'd be like, no. Slap my PP.
Slap you on the pee-pee with a hand notice.
Yeah.
I'm leaving the caddy like...
What?
It's a soundtrack, so they got the movie clip in there. You hear it? Can you hear it?
Nope.
This magic moment, so different and so
Still can't hear it?
was like any other
Yeah, I got it.
until I met you, and then it happened.
Yeah, and so it picks up tempo in the end. Last Mohican was a good soundtrack if you're like into whistles and like flutes and drums and shit. So that's a good one too. Your last question before we wrap up the show, Morgan.
all right. So Mike and I have Army background.
Mike and Ike.
You have.
I didn't know you like those nasty candies.
Yeah. Mike and myself
Okay.
have some Army background, and with your reenactment stuff, you've probably heard it too. You mentioned Sousa earlier, Mike. Um, did you get to go through any retirement ceremonies or change of commands or anything like that?
Not formally, but we did. I did train for DNC in blues at one point. In basic training, I did some very basic maneuvers with rifle, um, using your
Well, I
rifle and
guess
stuff
my
like
my
that. But yeah,
question is, um, I don't know about you, but
Mhm.
again, I get moved by music very, very much. And
Absolutely.
when I hear military marches,
Hmm.
it gives me tinglies in my special bits. I mean, there's just,
I think that's called
there's
chlamydia.
just no two.
They have a shot for that.
So
Well,
what? So are you? You're not talking
I
about
don't think.
cadences, though, are you?
Oh, no. I'm talking about like
Okay.
fanfare for a common man, and
Okay. Okay. So
the
like,
marching band music.
yeah. Okay. So and even a lot of like maybe even like the army song and stuff like that too, probably.
I love. So, have you ever seen like the Memorial Day concert or the Fourth of July or anything like that on PBS?
Honestly, I probably never watched it, man.
So PBS is like left of Stalin,
Hmm.
but the Memorial Day concert, I mean, this year it actually moved me to tears.
Really?
It was so powerful. And at the end of Memorial Day, Fourth of July, and I guess that's the only two, they do the Armed Forces medley, which is Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, of course.
Right.
And every time it gets to the Army song, I don't know what it is, but I mean it gets me every time.
Yeah.
So just like on the Memorial Day concert, they have a guy up on the roof of the Capitol building, on one of the balconies playing taps. And
That is not
I
something that
mean,
I miss hearing because every night at 9 p.m. fucking
uh,
fucking taps, and then every
oh
morning
yeah,
reveille at
Reveille,
fucking
yeah.
at fucking
Well,
4 a.m.
so quick story. We were, for retreat every night when they lower the flag,
Yeah.
you can attest everything on a military post stops
Oh,
while they're doing retreat.
jeez.
So during training, we got the privilege of retiring the post flag
Hmm.
one evening. So we're there doing our thing. I didn't have anything to do. I was just standing there with a rifle, at attention.
Hmm.
Uh, and as soon as that music started, the main post flag at Fort Dix, New Jersey, there was a road that went right by it. So as soon as that music started, the guy driving his car stops to get out, salute the flag. The guy behind him rear ends it.
Oh shit.
And I'm like, oh shit. So both of these guys are standing at attention, rendering a salute. Dude's car bursts into flames. And they're standing
You
there,
gotta wait.
full attention, rendering salute until the flag's all the way down. And this guy's car was fucking burning, flames 3 feet high out of the hood of his car, and nobody moved. As soon as that flag
Wow.
was down, the music stopped. He ran and grabbed a fire extinguisher and put his car out.
Holy shit.
I mean, that was God, that was 1991. And I remember that like it was yesterday.
Well, and a quick addition to that, if you ever want to watch a video online, go watch. It's a small clip of Robin Williams doing a USO show overseas.
Oh, that's awesome!
Soon as it starts playing, they all get up, turn around, like "fuck you," and they're right there to the flag. And he just stood there like, oh, shit.
Yeah, that's an awesome clip.
I mean, so many nights and mornings to reveille and taps and just ugh.
Yeah, I can remember a lot of mornings stopping right in the middle of PT for reveille.
Oh yeah.
Before we wrap it up, last week we did misheard song lyrics. Now, this isn't a misheard song lyrics, but an overlooked song theme that, not to rip off Peanut, right over people's heads on a great scale. You're all familiar with the great, fantastic band out of 1994, the techno pop country band called the Rednecks. They put out that smash single called Cotton Eye Joe.
Yeah. Cotton Eye Joe, I've been married a long time ago.
Where did you come from?
Where did you go?
Where did you come
from?
Now they repeat that 38 times, right? And then they say,
is it 38 times?
And then they go into he brought disaster wherever he went. The hearts of the girls were to hell, broken and sent. They all ran away so no one would know, and left only the men because of Cotton Eye Joe. Now let's think about those lyrics. If it hadn't been,
I know this because a very smart man that's a friend of mine went in depth on this on a former episode of this particular podcast.
If it hadn't been for Cotton Eye Joe, I would have been married a long time ago. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? Now, I made a joke earlier about Mr. Morgan Long having chlamydia. Mike, I don't know if you guys, were STD tests required before going into basic training?
In my time? No.
Have you ever had one?
Mine either.
No, never felt I needed one.
Part of the procedure, if you ever have a cheating spouse, of getting an STD test is they take a Q-tip about yay long and they shove it up your urethra. And that slang for that procedure is called the Cotton Eye Joe, because it's a cotton Q-tip going right up your eye. So now with that thought of the Cotton Eye Joe, and then you look at the lyrics saying, where did you come from, STD? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? If it wasn't for Cotton Eye Joe, I would have been married a long time ago. And then, as I said, they go into the line about he brought disaster wherever he went. The hearts of the girls were to hell, broken and sent. They all ran away so no one would know. He left only the men, Cotton Eye Joe. So the whole song is basically, and this was a huge hit, played all over the radio, all school dances, and we're all dancing along about chlamydia.
Yeah, kids listen to this fucking song. Kids scream this song.
The interesting thing is, this is it's actually an old bluegrass song.
Yeah.
From like the 40s or 50s. So, and there's like more than one verse.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. Because in the Redneck song,
it just has that
pretty
one.
much just like one verse and then the hook over and over and over again.
Here's another line. He came to town like a midwinter storm. He rode through the fields so handsome and strong. His eyes was his tool and his smile was his gun. But all he had to come for was having some fun. But yeah, so there you go.
Outstanding.
Maybe this will be a topic for another episode, and I'll just give it out there. I think I covered this before.
STDs?
What song and or music video was it that made you realize you're quote-unquote officially old? We'll save that for next week. So what song, when you heard it, made you realize you're officially old. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us at the What's in Your Head podcast. Please head over to whatsinyourhead.com, click on the Patreon link, sign up and subscribe. I got something in my throat now. Sign up and subscribe. Go to youtube.com, look for D410 Media. Check out our videos there. And email us. We want to hear from you. Send us an email at info@d-410.com or send us a message to our Facebook or my social media pages. Until then, we will talk to you all next week. Cotton Eye Joe.
Really quick.
Go.
August 31st is International Overdose Awareness Day. I have lost a few family members and friends to that. You're supposed to wear purple that day. Just as a public service announcement. That is all.
This has been a Digital 410 production.